Welcome to the Best Known Church Show, where we show you how to 10x your reach with church marketing that will help you increase your impact, make more disciples, and become the cornerstone of your community again. This is for the leaders with an outrageous vision, because anything less would be an inaccurate reflection of our Creator. The ones who have unreasonable faith, because you know God works unreasonable miracles. And the ones who are relentless in the pursuit of your calling, because anything less would not make a good and faithful servant. If that's you, you're in the right place. Now, please welcome your host and guide on this journey to become the best known organization in your community, Justin Nava.
Welcome to the Best Known Church Show. Whether you're watching live or watching the replay on YouTube, Spotify, your favorite podcast app, Facebook, even if you're watching on X, I thank you for watching this. Give this a like if you like the topic of today. We're talking about social media and churches. This is a tough nut to crack for so many churches, because no matter how many trainings we watch, no matter how many books we read, no matter how many times we talk with leadership, two things always happen with social. I shouldn't say always, usually happens with social media, especially in small churches. Number one thing I see is it becomes a bulletin board. It becomes a place where announcements live, and then we wonder why no one's paying attention to the church, why no one's interacting or engaging. Number two, it can become a barren wasteland where there's only one post a week, usually the Sunday live stream. I guess there's a third option, and we actually address it in today's interview. It becomes a feel-good, dare I say, prosperity-adjacent graphic warehouse. It becomes a place where you're just sharing pretty Bible scripture posts or quotes from people. Social media, as we're going to talk today, should be an avenue for people to not only see Jesus alive in the community, see the truth of the gospel in the lives of people at your church, but also nurture people to connect with your church community. Your church social media page is an asset of your church. It should work alongside your church's mission statement. So if it's just getting engagement, but it's not leading to anyone connecting with your faith community, it becomes more of an evangelical resource rather than a church resource. And I'm not saying one or the other is bad. I'm saying we have to be stewards of what God's called us to do in the ministry, and social media needs to be a part of that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If we haven't met before, my name is Justin Nava, founder of Nava Church Marketing and your host here on the Best Known Church Show. With me today, I have an interview that we're going to play. It's pre-recorded with Zach Bernauer from Church Communications. He is a digital growth coach. I am very excited to have him on here. We've got another interview coming in a couple of weeks from the Church Communications team, from their another one of their coaches. But today, I really wanted to have a conversation with Zach on what's working right now. I don't want this to be a webinar. I don't want this to be a training. I want this to be a conversation that you can listen to, feel like you're in the room. I hope I ask questions that come to your mind as they come to my mind. I even pressed Zach a little hard just to kind of get him to say something that's not just something you should do, but something you shouldn't do, a mistake he's often seeing. So I'm going to play this interview for you. If you have any questions, leave them in the chat if you're watching live or on replay. And again, at any time, if there's something, give me a digital amen in the chat or hit the like button wherever you are. I want to know that this is helping you guys, supporting you guys. And I want to let Zach know that we appreciate him. So here is my interview with Zach Bernauer of Church Communications, the best ways to reach your community with social media. All right. So with me, I have Mr. Zach. I'm going to let you pronounce your last name for me. Welcome to the Best Known Church Show. Tell everyone, if they have not met you, tell everyone about yourself and your ministry.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Justin. So my name is Zach Bernauer. So just Bernauer. It's super easy. It's also very German. So tends to be a little bit easier to remember. So I'm with Church Communications Group as a social media strategist. So really just diving into social media. I also live in Philadelphia, so I get to enjoy the Phillies and the Phillies games every once in a while. Was in ministry for 5 years in the Atlanta area doing youth ministry. And that's also where I learned church communications and online ministry. So
Sweet. Now there's two, I like to look at communications as actually two fields. You have internal communications and external communications. Internal being, let's keep these 50, 100, 200, 500 people on the same page. External being, let's keep these 5,000 to 5 million people on the same page. Where do you find that your calling lies? Is it supporting the saints, or is it reaching the community?
Oh, I definitely lean more outward focused. A lot of my ministry philosophies are based in like communicating a lot more outward, just because like when we look at our websites and even our social media analytics, it's so much more outward focused than it is inward focused. So yeah, my passion lies with us communicating as a church to our community.
Cool. And so what do you see right now as the biggest thing that churches need to know about social media? Is it something that we need to not do, fix, or an opportunity that we haven't quite jumped on yet? Like, what's on your heart right now?
What's on my heart, social media wise, is understanding the different platforms and those different audiences. One of the really difficult things about church marketing and even church communications is, we're not H&M. We don't have our niche young audience. We're trying to reach everybody. And social media is in such a interesting time, a super fun time, like with TikTok, and even is TikTok going to exist in 6 months? Like, we don't know. And then just kind of that innovation there. So I'm super passionate about us being able to know the different platforms. What is the audience for Facebook? What's the audience for Instagram? What's the audience for YouTube? And how can we connect with our community through that?
And what's your process, or how do you like to approach that? Because I think it's one thing to ask the question. It's another to actually walk someone through all that.
Yeah. So typically, I like to look at the analytics, because that's where we're really going to see those platforms and those audiences. So like Facebook is typically going to be that 40 plus female. It's skewed like super heavily over the past year, being 40 plus and then even female. So looking at that content, I always ask myself, what's Linda doing on Facebook? And for reference, Linda's my mom. And so
I was just going to say, where did that name come from? Come
Yeah.
on, Linda at HR. I mean, who are you picking on?
Fun fact, Linda works in HR too. So there you go. She's a benefits admin. So yeah, you got her profile right. But what Linda does on Facebook is she shares a ton of information. She's going to share community information of towns we've never even been to in our entire life. She's going to share information about churches, jobs, and it's all about Facebook communicating just that bare information, and then also that connectivity. So I normally begin that process of going like, hey, this is mom and grandmom, and like, let's look at what people don't know about our church and what can we appeal to mom and grandma, which a lot of times is our family ministry and events. Instagram is a little bit different. It skews younger, still like women, but that young mom, even a little bit lower to that millennial Gen Z. And what do we love? We love storytelling. So how can we tell stories on Instagram of the people whose lives have been impacted by our church and by the kingdom? And then YouTube's that whole other beast. It's mostly male, and we get to make like fun YouTube specific content. So really, I start by looking at the data and going, okay, let's put names and personalities to these platforms, and how then can we lean into it?
Now, okay, so let me ask you this then, because I felt, you remember in Star Wars when Obi-Wan sat down and was like, I felt something in the force, like a million screams all crying out at once. I'm butchering the quote there. I felt the anxious screams of a million pastors saying, you just rattled off 3 different web platforms with 3 different strategies, with 3 different audiences. And I'm just trying to communicate to 50 to 100 on a Sunday morning. So from the gears that are turning in my head, there's almost 2 ways, and tell me if I'm totally off here. I'm hearing either figure out who your church is equipped to serve and go where they are. So if you want to reach the families and you want to go through the mom, go to Facebook or Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to go to the men in town, go to YouTube. Or do you look at, well, you know what? I I'm pretty comfortable on video, so let's do YouTube. Or I'm pretty good at telling stories, let's do Instagram. Or I'm pretty good at spotting patterns and what's popular, so let's go to. How do you approach like what a church with its limited resources, if they're not blessed with their own Zach? What would you advise in that situation? Because that's a tough situation.
Yeah, and you know what? You bring up a very good point in that it's like the number one, especially like my background is I came from a church of 150. Zach was the social media person and the online person, but like just to let you in, I don't know how to do photography. Like I don't have this massive camera equipment or even the resources to that. And so a lot of that, to your first point, is like, who is my audience? Like, who is the audience that I'm really trying to reach here? And the second part to that is like, if it is that young family or that mom, grandmom, well, I'm obviously going to lean into that. If I really want younger families and I'm more in maybe a college town, well, I'm going to lean towards that Instagram. But it's a good point of like, you need to look at your resources. Like what I talk to a lot of the churches that we partner with is, what are your resources? Because, you know, we're always chasing after what Elevation does or even Life Church. And that is overwhelming and incredibly overstimulating. But like what you said, you do have to look. Do you have a team that's good at photography? Do you have a team that's good at videography? What about graphics? What about storytelling? So you need to figure out what your resources are and then what your audience. So it is a both end.
Okay, cool. What's something really crazy that God's done that through social media, ministry, your own, or maybe someone you've observed, that's just like inspired you and like, yeah, this is something?
You know, that's a good question. There's a church, you know, it's in Idaho. I think it's Idaho, one of those like Midwest states. That their church is super small, like about 60 people. And their social media platform, like their Facebook page is super small as well. And it actually is based around Facebook groups. So the women's ministry of the church, they created a Facebook group. And what they did was like, you know, that was their funnel of communications. And then the women recognized like this could be an outward kind of situation. So they began to invite the other moms in the neighborhood to be able to join that Facebook group. And that Facebook group grew more so than even the church's Facebook platform, to the point where there's so many moms in the community that they now have a night out that they get to hang out with one another. It's not sponsored by the church because it doesn't need to be, but the church is the one that's facilitating community within like their area. And I think that's super impactful. Like, you don't have to be a big church. You don't even have to have a start of a massive platform. You can just start somewhere and then be outward focused, and you're going to be able to make a difference and an impact in your community.
I think that sounds like almost like a legitimate digital discipleship strategy.
Yeah. And when they were telling me about it,
you're literally going where people are online.
Yeah.
On Facebook. And
what I love about it is like, they recognize it as a discipleship platform. But they more so they have a great kingdom mentality of, it's not about our church. It's not about growing our church. It's about increasing our influence. And they utilize that to influence moms that once a month they have a night out together, beyond different faith backgrounds or even different opinions of God in the church. They all just come together as people. And that has been really successful for them in growing their church as a byproduct.
And I really like that. I wish I could pull it up. If you have any examples, by the way, you can share your screen. Feel free. Don't feel like you have to just talk the whole time. If you want to share something, you can share screen on the show. I love that. Now, you did bring up something kind of risky that I've heard from others in Facebook groups. Zach, you're in the same groups as I am, right? Someone through good intentions starts a church Facebook or starts a Facebook group on behalf of the church, and then either is called away, falls out, burns out, whatever. Now they still have control, but since the church didn't properly administrate it, now they're in a little bit of a hiccup. Do you recommend that there's some sort of oversight on this, or is it a para-ministry, and the church will be here to support it, but it's not officially sponsored by the church. Because then there's other churches that have, I don't want to say they're legalistic, but they've been gifted legal resources, either people that are in the legal profession or just have that mindset of, we need to make sure we protect the church from this group that's not associated, pretending to be associated within, opens up a lot of liability. All that said, do you think that this, what are the signs maybe that this should be something that falls under the ministry of the church so it can then be passed on and more people brought in? Or should it be something that's more of a discipleship thing that just Justin does it and we'll support him in it, but it's not necessarily a church thing? Is there a boundary there that you see that needs to be at least considered as you're doing this kind of thing, as you're branching out on social media?
Yeah, in this particular case, it was originally started by the pastor's wife, and it started as a women's ministry thing. So for there, yeah, it's always going to be underneath that church umbrella. I think it does depend on the origination. Like if a member in your church creates a group, I never recommend allowing church members to create rogue Facebook groups that's, correlated to the church or have strings attached to it. I think that gets into branding issues, and then that's an issue there. But like if it starts out as something organic of someone in your church, yeah, feel free to back them, but let them act autonomously. But if it does start out as a church ministry, I think best practice would just to leave it underneath the church.
Yeah. So if someone creates a Facebook group, Men of Midtown, hey, go for it. It's a men's ministry. We'll support you anyway. But if they create a Facebook group like Men of Memorial Church, and it's like, okay, well, it's got our name in it, so we kind of have to, we'll support you. You can still run it as your ministry, but hey, we have kind of say. And that's one of those things where every church is unique. You got to kind of, do that. So be wary of that. So if someone could only do one thing, if they're just, let's just say average church, correct me if I'm wrong, but the average church out there, they're trying to put their sermons up on Facebook or YouTube. They might share some YouVersion graphics, right? You know what I'm talking about, those graphics. They might be posting some announcements that are important to them. But you scroll through their Facebook page, you do the same thing I do, and it's like 1 like, 2 likes, 1 like, no likes. And it's always Miss June. It's always Beverly. The shares are always the pastor's wife. They're doing something because they know they should be doing something, but they're checking a box. They're not so much actually seeing any kind of actual production and ministry or discipleship. So what's your go-to number one? Like, hey, let's get you started here.
Yeah, I would say let's start small. Like focus on like what content we can create. But my direction is always let's minister. Let's minister on this platform. Because, utilizing our social media platforms to promote events, that doesn't have a high return, especially when we're just utilizing that consistently. So like, let's minister, because we do have content. Like we don't always look at it as social media content, but what happens every Sunday that can feed our content? Pastor's sermon. So, and if we are following the leading of God, and not just the leading of God for our church, but for our community, the nice thing is God's going to be speaking to us about things such as parenting, marriage, faith, finances. And what we can do is repurpose that material, not as always a sermon snippet or a pastor's quote or a picture. Like we can answer some real felt need questions there. So my starting point is let's do ministry and let's be creative with the content that is already created for us.
Do you have like a cadence or what do you call it? Not a schedule, but like a formula you follow? Like, oh, we like to do what is it? Jab, 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 right hook. We like to do 3 ministry things, or Brady says no more than 20% announcements. So like for every 4 posts, do an announcement post. It's one of those hard things in ministry, man, where it's like, I know churches just want to use social media to do announcements and make an event board or whatever, but it's like, that's not what it, like, if anything, don't do events, don't do announcements. They'll find out, they'll click your link in bio. Right. Yeah. They'll look you up on Google. We have the day I can see on the website how many people are actually coming from the church Instagram. the link in bio versus Google. Like, I can see that. Okay. So like they're going to find out about you. So let's minister first. But anyways, to go back to that, do you have like a cadence that you like to follow or a recommended kind of posting formula for churches just to take thinking off the board?
Yeah, I think it's very circumstantial because we're always asking how many times do I need to post? I think in the posting, how many times, it's how many times can you do something consistent, not just church good, not that this is a good graphic for the church, but this is a good engaging graphic. Is that you can only produce that once or twice a week? Great. Then that's what we're posting. But typically, like the rhythm we follow is like we want to inspire on Monday, because the best way to have a good Monday is from Sunday. So being able to have people on Monday morning engage with ministry content, that also allows them to go back and watch the message if they missed it or missed church, or they've missed it in person or online. They can always go back to there. And then typically we'll do that ministry Monday, Tuesday, potentially Wednesday. And then we save that midweek, Wednesday, Thursday for events. I'm a huge proponent of, unless it's one of your big four kind of events, Christmas, Easter, Fall Festival for your church, keep those events in the story. Because as we're scrolling throughout the day, like as we're engaging with social media, we're looking at stories way more than we're doing the scrolling thing. And sometimes there's even a delayed reaction in that. So trying to communicate time-sensitive information on the wall is kind of redundant and does not meet the urgency that we have. So we typically focus, if we're going to do an event, Wednesday, Thursday in that story. And then Friday, Saturday is pushing towards that weekend experience. It's storytelling about what the lives that have been changed by our ministries on Sunday morning. It's very invitation focused.
I like that. One of the things that it seems technology is still trying to figure out, but I think we're on the cusp of, is we're switching from a follower-based algorithm to an interest-based algorithm.
Yeah.
So when you talk about like put it in your stories, I mean, to my knowledge, only your followers see your stories. But if you create a reel, anyone, either local, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but when I do a post, it just happens to hit more local people when it's for a local organization. It's almost like the algorithm knows everything about us. So what are you seeing? Are you seeing the same wind shift? Should we focus in on that interest algorithm, or should we focus in on, well, let's continue expanding our followers so we can expand our reach that way? Is that something that's on your radar? Kind of tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. So like when we're posting stories, our followers are seeing that. And typically our followers are going to be the people that have bought into our church. So yes, am I always a proponent of like, let's get more followers? Yes, because that correlates to we have more people coming on Sunday, or at least we're influencing them on a bought in commitment level there. But as for your normal person in your community, they're not going to follow your church page just because you're in the community, especially when they may not have a faith background. That's when those interest-based felt need posts come in. Like when you have moms and dads in the community trying to figure out how to raise good children or raise children, and now you have postings that are how to raise godly children or how to have a stronger marriage, you are hitting that interest base, with ultimately is going to increase your reach and that engagement. So yeah, do I want to increase my followers? Absolutely, because that shows that there's people bought into us as a church. But I'm leaning into that interest-based felt need, because that's going to be the farther reach and the further impact into my community.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. So do you do any ad retargeting? Like my social strategy for our clients is, let's put out really good organic posts. When we hit a banger, let's put some money behind it, get in front of try to get, pay to play. Let's get in front of as many people. And then the people that engage with that, we know their need. So then we know how to invite them, so we can retarget them with intention. Is that something that you use, or is there something else you use to try to capitalize on the posts that really work? Besides duplicating, obviously we want to replicate that. Is there
Yeah.
any strategy you have beyond that? Just kind of forward think what is possible?
Well, that's a good question. That leans like within Church Communications Group, our ad department. But yeah, we do retargeting campaigns all the time because we do want to continue to engage with them. If there are posts that seem to be getting some really good traction, I'm always a proponent for boosting it. Put some money behind it. You know, like our social media platforms a lot of times are pay to play. And sometimes you have to feed the beast in order for the beast to serve you, especially YouTube. I'm a huge proponent right now, especially with the future of TikTok. The OG TikTok is YouTube. TikTok is extremely human, very about shared interest and the like. Who's been doing that for 10, 15 years? YouTube with vlog culture. Mm-hmm. So as they're kind of reimagining themselves, there's a huge opportunity to gain some following based off of just boosting your Sunday morning service or even your snippets for subscribers. So yes, overarchingly, we do retargeting primarily for event-based advertising, but I'm always a proponent that if you see a post going well, put some money behind it.
Can I ask you a question that is something that I think I'm the only one asking, but since you're here, I want to ask it because it might be helpful for someone. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm weary of when we look at quote unquote value-based posting, let's minister, let's put the word of God out there, let's evangelize.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm weary of is having a local church page become not a prosperity feel good message page or whatever, but it loses the essence of the local church.
Yeah.
They become street preachers that preach the gospel. Hey, do you want to follow Jesus? Are you going to, they end up thinking like, I love Ray Comfort's ministry, the way they go out and preach the gospel. I love that. But one of the things that I am not a fan of is they say, will you at least consider that? Will you think about it? Will you read that Bible you have on your shelf? There's never an invite into community. There's never an invite into a relationship or a follow-up. So I'm weary in social media, church social medias that become like Bible verse scripture pages or sermon snippet pages, and they lose the essence of we're a local community that meets here every week. Now there may be some stuff on the back end that I don't see, but how do you navigate that? Is that something you think of, or is that just a me thing where I'm like, how do we make sure that we emphasize this is not a Christian page, this is a church page? Like we want to connect you with our faith community. Is that something on your mind, or is that something that's just kooky Justin just keeps thinking about?
No, I like that because that is a concern too, because we felt that tension when we were on staff navigating this, like especially COVID. Like when you're moving back out of COVID, a lot of people were tempted to stay online. Like I'm just going to engage with my local church online. And I feel like us as a church, not just in social media realm, but all of our digital media, that's been the huge temptation is like people are just going to engage and see us minister online, but not get involved. And being involved is where the huge value is. That's where I lean into storytelling, is because the storytelling allows names and faces to experiences. It allows names and faces to the ministry content that we're pushing out. And what that ultimately does is it builds our reputation. And there's a lot of mistrust culturally around the church and its leaders. And for people to be hearing genuine, authentic stories of how the local church, how mom's ministry, how youth ministry, how Celebrate Recovery, Grief Share has impacted their life, that only reinforces the message of ministry that we're pushing out, that like, you want to be here. We don't just want to make you better. We want to be a part of seeing God transform your life in this community.
I like that. And one of the things that we've noticed is when you tell stories, it's not so much people seeing what God has done, but it's the potential of what God can do in me, because it's kind of like the weight loss infomercials. If it worked for me, it can work for you too. It's, well, man, if God's helping this kind of person, it's not so much that they see what God's doing in them, it's what God can do in me because I'm like them.
Yeah.
It's the potential. I see myself in that testimonial, in that story. So I really, really like that. Is there something that is there any warning or sin that you want to see stop on social media? Is there anything like, Pastor, we talked about what you got to start doing. We've talked about what you should sustain doing. What should churches stop doing? Zach?
That it might be controversial, but stop being like every other church. Like
Mm.
a lot of what
Come on
we
now. Come
pull
on. Reach. Come on.
yeah,
All right,
like
let me stop
it's like
interrupting.
a lot of what we pull our even what we pull our inspiration from is other churches. And is that, like, can me and you look at the same graphic and the same content and be like, that's good church content? Yeah. But you take us out of our position and you just throw that in our feed. It takes us milliseconds to decide if we're going to engage with a piece of content. We scroll right past it. And it's because it is inspired by a silo and it's inspired by void of a larger piece of inspiration. So mine is like, be yourself. Like, people want to go to something that is authentic and human and feels different and feels real. Grab that inspiration from things in your community. What's the big businesses in your area? What's the big cultural shifts in your area? What are the pillars of your community? Draw inspiration from that. Draw inspiration from the small business that exists. Draw inspiration from Apple that's in your backyard. Draw inspiration from what you're seeing on ads in the Super Bowl and the Olympics and television. And what pulls you and tugs at your heartstrings, that's going to tug at the community's heartstrings more than, yeah, that church looks like Life Church and Elevation in Bethel. So the big cardinal sin of social media is replication, because it's disingenuous and it's dishonest. And, if Elevation was the church for them, they'll go to Elevation. But you're not Elevation, and I'm glad you're not. You're not Life Church, and I'm glad you're not. You're you. So show you, because that's going to connect with people.
Yeah, and man, the shortcomings are often some of the things that people fall in love with the most. Like, I know it's not Elevation.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually why I'm here, because I don't want to blend into a crowd. I don't want to walk into a stadium. I barely even want to walk into a church that smells too good, because it's like, what are they hiding? Right? Like,
and you're right. Like, I even have noticed that, and I'm sure you're the same way. Like, we are very much in that church world, the church communication world. And that imperfection is really appealing. The church that I go to on Sunday morning, they don't even know if they have a bulletin. I sit sometimes in the pew and like go through their communications. Oh, this is awful. This is terrible. Like, but there's something so endearing about that. It's like, and it is such a genuine community, and everyone that's there, I'm like, wow, they are here because they love one another and they love Jesus. And so, yeah, like those shortcomings, like those not polished, is actually the thing that really is the drawing factor, like all of us.
And there are a lot of things that I think if you try to put your best foot forward on, and you're not even wearing your own shoes, you're wearing someone else's shoes, you're gonna bring someone in, and they're gonna come for a reason that you don't actually meet. They're gonna come to find something that you don't have, or they're gonna come try to get help with something that you can't provide.
Yeah.
I had a client that before we started working with them, they had someone come in for deliverance, and he was like, this is not what we do. Like, this is like, great, go find a deliverance church, but this isn't us. But they had given off that aura, so to speak, that this might be something that they can do, because they were using language of other churches that almost dog whistled to that person. Well, this is that kind of church.
Yeah.
And look, you don't have to look far. Look at the hole in the wall barbecue joint that runs out of food by 1 o'clock. And you're like, what kind of restaurant is running out of food by 1 o'clock? The one that everyone wants to go to.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd. Look at the local game store with stained carpet, peeling wallpaper, sodas that aren't even cold, but they are packed and people are sitting on the floor. And if you have good smell, you may not want to show up to this place. If you have a good nose, you may not want to show up to this place on Friday Night Magic, because just a certain type of person is going to go to that store and it's going to be packed. But despite all those things, they get packed and people are paying money to go to this place. It's not free like a church. Okay. Because there is something more there. And, there are some places where it's kind of like, there's an old adage, the second restaurant never does as well as the first, because the first has a charm.
Yeah.
And the second one is built brand new. and it doesn't have that charm. It doesn't have those laminated but somehow still stained menus. It doesn't have the same chef that's swearing in the back but makes the best food ever, right? Like, there is a charm there that if we're not careful, we lose, and we end up being so insecure, we falsely represent ourselves.
Yeah.
And unlike premarital counseling that brings out that stuff, we don't have that. So we've got people jumping into relationships and covenants with our local body that end up signing up for something that they didn't even realize they were getting into because we never were honest in the first place.
Yeah.
I like that you're saying that in your own words. If someone has any more questions, Zach, or if someone's like, yeah, I want to, there's something here I need to wrap my head around, and we need to actually put some put some rubber to the road. What's the best next step for someone if they want to either get in contact with you or start improving their social media?
Yeah. So one of the best places to start with that is churchcommunications.com. We have right at the top, discovery call. And it's like, what's your felt need? Like, how can we help you? We love to get on calls with churches and just like resource and brainstorm and partner. So that's a great way to do it. And then also we have our church communications conference coming up in Dallas on September 19th and 20th. It's not too late. And then also in 2025, we're going to 14 different cities. We call those our church communications roadshows. Those are one-day events where we talk about all things church communication, social media. We talk about planning out. So those are the best ways to get in contact with us.
So y'all are really like, you're not just, hey, here's some information, good luck. Y'all are actually like kind of guiding churches, helping them figure out, all right, I'm going to start here. Here's what I want to see. And then you're going to kind of advise on the next best things that they can do for that. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're here for a resource. We're just here to help you brainstorm how to be better and how we can help you be better. So yeah, we're here as a resource always.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Zach, for being here. I appreciate you. And if anyone is listening, churchcommunications.com. Thanks for being here, Zach.
Thanks for having me.
There we go. Good stuff from Zach. Thank you so much, Zach, for being here. If you want to get connected with him or anyone else on the team, one of the things that I love about Church Communications is they make it very easy to get connected with them. And they're not only focused on resourcing you, but also coaching you through programs. That's an inspiration to how I want to run my ministry and business. And they are just some really cool people, especially now that they are connected with I can't remember the name of it anymore, but Missional Marketing. There you go. Since they're connected with Missional Marketing, I'm very, very excited to see the things that are coming out from Church Communications. So go to churchcommunications.com or join the group with tens of thousands of other church communicators and pastors and leaders. Very great resource. I go there often. You'll often find me there answering questions. So thank you guys for watching. Like this video if you like this video. Subscribe if you want more. Tomorrow, I am going over what might be the perfect small church website, and what makes it work, how you can do it on your own. And I'm very excited for that. That's going to be on my YouTube channel. So go to YouTube. If you're already there, subscribe so you don't miss another video. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you all, and I will see you all next week.
That's going to do it for today's episode of the Best Known Church Show with Justin Nava. Be sure to subscribe to stay updated on the latest news, strategies, and resources that you need to reach 10x more people and become the best known in your community. To send us a message or leave a voicemail for Justin to be played on a future show, visit thebestknownchurchshow.com. And if you'd like to work with us so you can focus on your ministry, give us a call at 832-861-7654. Until next time, stay outrageous, unreasonable, and relentless.